I'm trying a new setup, so if I'm cut off, just ride with me, okay? I'm getting ready for my electrolysis appointment, which I think I've been doing it at this point for maybe 4 or 5 months, and it's going so good. But actually, it was the impetus of what I want to talk to you about today. I have a question for you because I was reflecting on my life this morning. Is your contentment in your life regarding where you are and what you have, does it match the person you are today, right? And I'm going to tell you why I'm asking this question. So this morning, as I was getting dressed and getting ready for my day, I'm an oversprayer, so don't be alarmed, okay? As I was getting ready for my day, I was reflecting on the part of the fact that I'm able to, on a Friday, like casually start my morning with a slow morning, go to my electrolysis appointment, work on my business for 10 to 15 minutes, and maybe plan a lunch. I think I'm gonna take myself on a date for lunch today and go sit at someone's bar and just look out a window. Not that I drink, but I'm trying to get more social. And I heard someone say recently, like, go sit at the bar as a single person and just start sparking conversation with people instead of sitting in your own booth. Me. So I'm going to try that today. But me thinking about the fact that I'm even able to do electrolysis, like on my face, that's something that I always wanted. I didn't forget to say this, real transparent. It's something that I always wanted done. However, in the small rural town where I lived, I don't want to wear this bracelet. I have tried on 3 different outfits. I wanted to get real cute today, but I try to dress more casual when I go to these appointments. But the fact that I'm able to have an electrolysis, a black electrolysis, is the result of me really being honest with myself about the fact that I was no longer content with my life. And that it really changed when I started to change as a human, right? Old Marthea was content with, I never was content with my jobs. Never. But my personal life, I was content with, as long as I was in a loving relationship and I was happy with my person, I'll stay in this small rural town forever, as long as time ran out and I'm trying to bring it out home. So I'm a sucker for love, right? And for many, many years where I was in my life, I built my whole life around my relationship. Right. This is not my parenting relationship, because my life centered around my daughter first. But secondly, when it came to my personal life, it was around my relationships. And so at this point, I was in a long-term relationship, had been with this person for 11 years. Pause. Don't ever stay with nobody that long unless you have like some type of guarantee, but that's a whole nother conversation for a whole nother day, from a person who has spent a lot of years in long-term relationships and wasn't even like certain if that's what I wanted. But anyway, and at that time I was just like, as long as my relationship good, I'm good. I'm gonna stay here. I'll make it work. This is how I got really creative at getting jobs outside of my city to increase my salary earning potential, like my job in DC, because I was like, I'm not gonna move. For the longest I would always say, like, when my daughter got into middle school, I would move. I'm looking for a bracelet, but I didn't. And then eventually said, it went to, I'm staying because my person is here, right? I say that to say, now that I'm here and I'm in a bigger city, I realize that the contentment I thought I had at that time in that city was based off of the old version of me, and that it was past time for me to revisit what contentment in my life looked like based on who I was as a person today, right? Back then, Marthea was a smaller version of myself. Honestly, I didn't know what I wanted when it came to my personal life. I knew what I needed in my career life and what I wanted to do because I had a plan. But one thing I could really admit to you where I was real hands off was when it came to my personal life. Right? And so the ability for me to now be able, like the minute I got here, I found an electrolysis, which I don't believe in coincidences. It's someone who followed my work before I even moved to this city, who's a fellow social worker, and I found her in a Google search. And when I went down her, I was like, I know that profile picture because I've seen her in my stories and liking my posts. And so fast forward, when I went to schedule my first session, I was like, and I went to go look her up to see if she followed my page, and she did. I say that to say that was God's confirmation to me that I had did what I was supposed to do. I was being obedient and I moved. I told you all the story about that, how I moved here. Got rid of everything because God told me to move. God told me to move about 6, 7, 8, 9 years ago. But again, my contentment with my old life and with my relationship kept me there, right? And I say that, and this is the part I forgot about. The old version of Marthea didn't know what it meant to be with an emotionally unavailable person. I didn't know that as Marthea, 35 years and younger. I didn't know what that is. However, once I hit 35, I told you all this before too, it was like the scales fell off of my eyes. And I really began I thought I knew a lot about myself prior to 35. I had no idea. Truthfully, I was moving through the world as just a grown child. Once I got over 35, I realized and I started learning more about who I really was, right? And what it meant, what were the whys behind the things that was going on in my life, be it good, bad, or indifferent. And one of the things that I learned about is being in a relationship with an emotionally unavailable person. And like for me, how the likelihood of that like resulting in something lasting is not gonna happen because that's not based off of what my needs and wants are. And so when I got that confirmation, just simply through my electrolysis appointment, finding my electrolysis again, who's a fellow social worker, that was a sign that you thought you were happy in that city. I'm going to show you what real happiness is, because I was like jumping over the moon. And I know it's something so trivial, but this is something that I wanted to do for like the last 20 years. However, there were no black electrolysis in my city that knew how to treat black skin, right? And so I know that's something so small, but I wanted to come on and pose the question to you. Is contentment in your life right now based on how your life is, who you are today as a person, or is it based off of the old version of you from maybe a year ago, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, 5 years ago? For me, the old version of me, contentment was as long as I had a job that I was able to pay my rent without having to work 2 and 3 other jobs. If I was able to pay my rent out of one paycheck, even if that meant I had nothing left over to get grocery or gas, that was contentment for me. However, contentment for me when I got my first macro job was because contentment for me at that time looked like having a job that paid me so well that I could pay all of my monthly bills and have money to put into a savings account and to invest and be able to still go and spend money on myself out of one paycheck. I'm not going to talk about what contentment looks like for me now, where I am now, but 5 years ago, that's what contentment evolved into with my first macro job. It's really, truly a deeper conversation around, like, are you settling under the guise of you are content? And at the root of it, I'm going to get real deep for you. The reason I never asked for more is because I felt guilty for asking for more, for desiring more, even though I had deeper, like, thoughts of it. And honestly, I didn't even know what I could get. And I could honestly say that a lot of that is evolved from coaching and from being exposed to people who have more. I'll never forget, oh my gosh, when I was working at an HBCU as an academic advisor. This was in the height of the pandemic. I did it for one semester, and I was like, nah, y'all can keep this. It's too much like case management. That's when my world was shifted. At that time, I hadn't technically hired a coach yet. I had hired my leadership coach, but not any other type of coach. And I would meet with the students on Zoom, right? I'm looking to see if I'm still on. I would meet with the students on Zoom to do their academic advising sessions. And I will never forget, it was this one young man who was he was at his family's house where he lived. And he had his Zoom camera on. He had no background. And all I could see in the background was the tall ceilings with the crown molding. And this is a black. And I remember thinking to myself, like, oh my gosh, we can have houses like that. We can live like that, because keep in mind, I lived in a very rural town that was the most economically segregated city in the nation. So as an adult, I didn't see these things. As a child, I did, because I grew up in Palm Beach County. I have family members that do really well for themselves, but I had been far removed from that. I hadn't really been immersed in that life in probably like 27 years, because that's how long I had been in this other town. And I remember thinking like, oh my gosh, we can live like that. People have that. And then I remember getting on another academic advising call with another student, and it was her and her mother on the thing, which is a whole nother downside to working in higher ed. But it was her and her mother on the call. And I was helping them, but at the same time, I'm looking in the background. And her mother was a single mother just like me, but their house is so big and huge and lavish. And I remember thinking like, Marthea, the end goal is not just having this job, right? Because this is before by that time I had already worked a macro job. Right, but I moved back to the city to start my PhD program, thinking it was going to be in person, but it went online because of the pandemic. But it's a whole nother story. But I can honestly say that was the first time that my contentment for where I was in life was challenged in a good way. So I want to ask you the question: is your contentment with where you are right now, what you have, the people, places, and things in your life, what you're earning in your career, what you're doing for your career, is that based off of the current version of who you are, or is it based off of the old version of you? And if it's based off of the old version of you, or if you don't know what version it's based off of, I encourage you to force yourself to get into bigger spaces. That's why I have the whole community piece of my micro to macro career accelerator. It's because it forces you to be in a bigger space where you are in constant community with people who are achieving bigger, better things than you, because it gives you insight that it's possible for you too, or that these things even exist, that there's even other options. Let me go. All right. All of this for my electrolysis appointment. I think I was supposed to do a spin today, but yeah, God was talking to me today, so I had to share that, and I hope it comes off the way